Okay, now we are joined by Mr. Tom Phillips, who has done outstanding work in the community. Lots of it volunteering to work with children with special needs to make sure that they were able to receive everything that they have coming in MPS. He is a person who I have known in the community for years who have worked to try to help make this system better, and so he's going to share his comments and words with you today.
Well, my paper that I'm going to share with the Senate committee today is entitled MPS is a Brand That Failed. When we talk about poor performance on state tests, we're talking about an immediate problem which this administration and this school district has essentially ignored for years. That's got to be remediated very quickly, and I believe that that's going to require intervention from the state to get the job done. Because it's at the school level, it's at the bureaucrat level, and it has nothing to do with who picks the superintendent. In point of fact, most families who live in Milwaukee and have thought about the issue of MPS are moving their kids out. MPS is losing each year an enrollment, the equivalent of the entire enrollment of the Shorewood school system. How many more years can this go on before we just call DPI and say, you can have it, we don't have any kids left, we've got 13,000 employees because we never lay off any employees, but we don't have any kids, but it's yours, we give up. In order to rebrand MPS, it's going to take at least 7 years and maybe as many as 10 years. I've discovered this working in the Bayview area where we're trying to rebrand Bayview High School. Parents don't believe the public relations when we say we're going to rebrand the school or reform the school. They're going to have to see it, and that's going to take years. I believe that a fundamental flaw in the mayor's proposed takeover is that it reduces parent participation, it reduces democracy, and I believe that one of the principal antidotes to where we are is to increase democracy and increase parent participation, and in fact increase the size of the school board so that children are as important as garbage carts. An alderman in the city has half as many constituents as a school board member, hence the remark that wags make that children are only half as important as garbage. How we got to this place is a long and tortured history, but I think we have to have the courage to take a step back. We had a board of 15 some years ago. It didn't do a great job, but it did a better job than the board we've had with 9. Parents felt they were closer to their school board member. I think we need to reestablish that link. So I end up arguing that we should defeat the mayoral takeover and go in a different direction so that we can reestablish MPS as a brand that parents will want to participate in. Once a family takes their kid out of MPS and puts him in a charter school or a voucher school or open enrollment, it's a very long shot that we're ever going to get that kid back. Unless it's a voucher school, it's so bad that the parent can figure it out, and then we get the kids back after the 3rd Friday, and we have to educate the kids, and the voucher school keeps the money. That's a model that has to be addressed. So in the long run, I believe we have to rebrand MPS MPS. I believe the best way to do it is to change the way the board is organized. It includes such things as public financing of elections. It includes more board members. It includes redrawing board member district lines to be fairly contiguous with the lines that we now have for the clusters. That's a long haul. I don't know how far we'll get down that road. In the short run, we have the calamity of low reading scores, low math scores, and I see no enthusiasm at Fleet Street to do anything on those issues except yada, yada, yada. I'm supporting the bill 437, which gives more powers to the state superintendent. I am critical of his bill because it doesn't go far enough. I associate myself with the criticisms made this morning by Senators Olson and Senator, the woman from the North Shore, Alberta Darling. They were complaining to Tony Evers that the bill didn't give him enough authority to come in and clean up MPS. A mistake that everybody was making, because people on the committee aren't from Milwaukee, is they are not thinking in terms of Chapter 119 of the statutes, and Tony Evers doesn't really yet think in terms of Chapter 119. Most of the powers that I believe the legislature should give to the state superintendent to clean up MPS should be in Chapter 119, and then it would only apply to MPS. They wouldn't meddle with successful school districts. More importantly, it wouldn't even cross the mind of outstate school districts that there was a possibility of meddling, because the powers would be confined to Chapter 119, which applies only to MPS. I'm urging people to get a copy of Beth Furtag's book, Why Can't You Teach Me to Read? It's about kids in New York City who had IEPs, which said they should be taught to read, and they were not. And people went into court, and it's costing the New York school district immense amounts of money because they didn't do the job that was in the IEP when they had the time to do it. Remediation after a student is 18 or 19 or 23, rather than teaching them to read when they're in second and third grade, is a very, very expensive thing to do. The chances of its success are very low, and in the meanwhile you have destroyed some of the most important formative years of that child's life. Why do it? We're experiencing the same thing in MPS with the case in federal court, the Jamie S. case. MPS is dragging it out and dragging it out and dragging it out. Ultimately, they're going to have to remediate, but those children will have lost all those formative years. So this book about New York and what's going on there ought to inform us in Milwaukee so that we can avoid that same mistake. I see no enthusiasm at Fleet Street to end that lawsuit and get down to the business of teaching children. The lawsuit is not about teaching children. The lawsuit is about what's called compliance. Compliance deals with, did the parent get the right number of days notice for the meeting? Are the commas in the right place? Are the semicolons in the right place? It has nothing to do with the content of the IEP, which is what IEPs are supposed to be about. We're going to teach little Johnny to read.